So today ASUS announced a bunch of brand new laptops, specifically a brand new ZenBook in their lineup. This is the Asus ZenBook A14. It looks a little bit different compared to the S16 and S14 that they released late last year. This one is going to be rocking a Snapdragon processor. Now this is an overview of the laptop just because this is a prototype unit, so I can't really benchmark it, but hopefully I'll give you a nice feeling of what to expect. Now I like this style of laptop because they were able to produce a laptop that is not only super light, but continue that cerulean process that ASUS is known for. It's still a metal chassis, it's using the cerulean process, and what that does is it also gives it a very unique texture. Now they say it doesn't attract fingerprints, but every laptop attracts some fingerprints. But what I can say confidently, it doesn't attract them as easily as most normal laptops. It also has this feeling to it, like this rugged feeling to it. It might go along with the whole fact that this is MIL STD A10H tested. Like you can bring this outdoors. It's been proven to withstand some of the elements. Overall, it's supposed to be a very rugged laptop. And the best part about it is it's super light. Like this thing weighs under 1 kilograms, 2.18 pounds. And when I pick it up, it doesn't have a lot of sharp edges. Everything is nice and rounded off. It feels super comfortable to hold. You have the Asus ZenBook logo in the middle. You have tons of I/O. So on the left-hand side, you have an HDMI port, 2.1, two USB 4.0 ports, combo audio jack, and then on the right-hand side, you have a single USB-A 3.2 port. And opening it up, super easy with one hand. The display doesn't go 180 degrees. This is how far back it goes, which is pretty standard for most laptops. You have a wonderful touchpad, Like it feels so good to use. It's nice and smooth, it's big, it's glass, and it feels very accurate. The keyboard itself is your typical ASUS keyboard. Like if you've typed on a ZenBook, this is exactly what you should expect. Pretty clicky. You have good travel distance. The keys are spaced very nicely. There's no numpad, as there shouldn't be since this is a 14-inch form factor. Copilot key has replaced the right control key. You have full-size arrow keys, and of course, you have the ZenBook logo on the top right. But one of the things I love about this laptop is this display. Now, this is going to be a 60 hertz OLED display, depending on the model you buy. They also offer a non-OLED version, depending on the price point, but this 60 hertz OLED display looks absolutely awesome. I actually did a little bit of a display quality test, and it has really good color accuracy. The color gamut is absolutely awesome, and screen brightness in SDR mode is above average. It's not touch, but that's what you kind of expect with this style of display. It is 16 by 10, so you do get that extra vertical space so that things look a little bit taller, at least when you're reading documents. And then at the top, you have a 1080p webcam. This is what the 1080p webcam looks like on the ZenBook A14. I do have the furnace or the heat coming in from the top, so you guys let me know if you can hear that. Also, I'm using nothing but natural lighting. There's some weird noises going on outside. I don't know if you guys can hear that. But yeah, let me know how the video looks, and more importantly, how does the audio sound? Now, as I always do, I like to talk about the hinges because I know a lot of you appreciate a good hinge. Now, the hinge on this is nice and solid. So a little bit of wobble when you open it up, but it's fine. Like it's normal wobble. It's not like bad wobble where the thing's going all over the place. The hinges are exactly where they should be. Now this unit I have here is using a Snapdragon processor. You can obviously spec this all the way up to 32 gigabytes of RAM and a 1 terabyte NVMe SSD. Pricing on this is gonna just start under $1,000, and depending on the model and the faster processor you get, this could go over $1,000, but generally it's going to be a bit more affordable than a fully spec'd out AMD or Intel version that you saw late last year. Now, this is not a new Snapdragon processor inside of here, so if you know how the Snapdragon X Elite performs or the X Plus, you can expect the same sort of results on this guy. Now, one thing that ASUS does claim though is that this battery has 32 hours of battery life doing their video playback test. Now, these are big numbers, like big numbers. I don't know about 32 hours. That's a lot, right? Look, I'm gonna test it out when this thing comes in. I'm sure it has good battery life, as we've seen on other Snapdragon laptops, but 32 hours is definitely a big claim. Now, taking off this bottom lid is super easy. Like this is very flexible and it just comes right off. And once you're in, you can see that not a lot is upgradable as expected. RAM is soldered on, so is the system on chip. You have your fans, a big copper heat pipe running across the middle. Your NVMe SSD slot is right here. This is the only thing that is replaceable. So in the future, if you want something bigger, you can totally place that inside. Big battery to give you good battery life, and then you have 2 speakers that are on the bottom. Now, I also have the Asus VivoBook A14, and this is a more affordable laptop from Asus. You still get good specs, but the best part is you pay a lot less. Like for example, the Qualcomm version of this laptop starts at $649, and you can spec this with an Intel or even an AMD processor. The overall build quality is not going to be as high end as the VivoBook S16 or S14. This is going to have more of a plastic chassis, but it does feel really well built. It's going to get a little bit of fingerprints on the darker version. The silver should be able to hide that slightly better. It's super clean on the lid, just the Asus VivoBook logo on the left-hand side, but there's a good amount of ports. For example, on the left-hand side, you have a USB 4.0 port, HDMI, USB 3.2, another USB 4.0 port, and a combo audio jack. Both of these Type-C USB 4.0 ports not only support DisplayPort, but they also support power delivery, meaning you can plug your charger into either one of them and your laptop is going to charge. On the other side, you have a single USB 3.2 port. The overall laptop weighs just under 4 pounds. If you want to get something even lighter, you can look at the 14-inch model instead. But you can open it up using 2 hands, not one unfortunately. And once you're inside, the display goes all the way flat, 180 degrees. Now, some of you love this because you can take your display, shove it under a monitor, use the keyboard and the touchpad without having to hook up an external mouse. It just keeps your desk cleaner. The beauty about the deck of this keyboard is you get a numerical keypad, so you can crunch your numbers over here, then continue typing directly in the middle. Now, the VivoBook 16 has a slightly smaller touchpad than the more expensive VivoBook S16, so keep that in mind. If you want slightly more bells and whistles, you're gonna have to pay a little bit more for the S16 or S14. The actual typing experience is quite nice. The keys have a good amount of travel. It feels very clicky, so you'll enjoy typing on this thing. Full-size arrow keys. The control key is no longer a control key. It's now for Copilot, as on most newer Windows laptops. The touchpad feels fantastic to use, and it's big enough for your fingers. Now, this 16-inch display is 16 by 10. It's 60 Hertz. It's using an IPS level panel. Again, if you want OLED, you got to move up to the S16 instead. But overall, the screen brightness looks to be good enough. The color gamut should be more than satisfactory for everyday use, and the color accuracy should also be great for design work. You have a display that's not touch, but you do get an infrared scanner at the top, which allows you to use things like Windows Hello facial recognition. Also, if you're concerned about privacy, you do have a little switch over here that can completely disable the camera. So this is what the 1080p webcam looks like on the Asus VivoBook 16. You guys let me know how the colors are. I'm using nothing but natural light coming from the windows, but more importantly, how do the microphones sound? Now, unfortunately, I can't benchmark this because this is a pre-production unit, but this laptop will come with 3 different CPU options. Again, it really depends on where you live and what SKUs they're offering there. You can spec it with up to a Qualcomm Snapdragon X processor. You can spec it up to an Intel Core Ultra 5 Series 2 processor, or all the way up to an AMD Ryzen AI 7 350 CPU. And here's the thing. The Intel and AMD versions have upgradable RAM. So if that's really important to you, you'd probably want to stick with one of those two, because Qualcomm's option, the RAM is going to be soldered onto the motherboard. Now, the internal, super easy to get into. There's just Phillips screws on the back. You don't need any special screwdrivers to get in. If you have the Intel or AMD version, RAM will not be soldered onto the motherboard. It will be upgradable. We have one big copper heat pipe, a fan to keep everything nice and cool. A lot of wasted space over here. I would have loved a second slot for a second drive, but at least the original one is upgradable or replaceable. 2 speakers on the bottom, and then you have a 50 watt-hour battery. I believe the battery in the AMD and Intel version is slightly smaller, but not by much. I'm expecting good battery life on the Qualcomm version, like we've seen what these things can do. This will obviously be an all-day laptop to use. Okay, so that is a first look at the ZenBook A14 and the VivoBook 16th. If you're interested in checking out this laptop, I'll place links to both of them in the description down below. If you want me to review them, also let me know in the comment section along with any questions you might have. I have a lot more videos coming out for CES 2025, so make sure to get subscribed so you don't miss them. Like the video if you liked it, and I'll see you guys in the next one.